Many of us stash everything in the refrigerator when we get home from the grocery store. Why? Because we want to keep our produce fresh. But did you know it might have the opposite effect? So today, we're going to uncover the 10 culprits that you should never ever put in your refrigerator. And I'll discuss what I believe is the number one culprit that people put in the refrigerator that they shouldn't. So, can you guess which one is number one? Knowing what to store in your refrigerator is important for several reasons. Like I said, it can negatively affect the texture and flavor. It can also promote food waste, which means you're just going to throw it away. And I don't know about you, but I have limited space in my refrigerator. So why have something take up refrigerator space if it doesn't have to? Now, I'm going to go through all 10 items, but as I do, I will give you a tip on what is the best way to store that item. Now, if you've ever grown tomatoes in your garden, you know they love the heat. And after you pick them fresh from the vine, they still love the heat and have an aversion to the cold. Yes, place them in the refrigerator, the cool temperature will halt the ripening process. But it also damages the flavor producing enzyme. So you end up with that too familiar mealy texture, tasteless tomato, all because you put it in the refrigerator. So what's the best way to store a tomato? Well, it's fine right on your counter, but not like this. You want to, that's right, store it upside down, vine side down. That keeps it the juiciest possible. But what if you've cut one? You can't use it all. Well, then it's okay to put it in the refrigerator. Just wrap the remaining half in plastic wrap and store it cut down side in the refrigerator to prevent it from drying out quickly. But you want to use that chilled half in a couple days and bring it to room temperature before you place it on your hamburger. So let's move from the garden to the bakery. Now we've seen what cold does to tomatoes, but what about bread? Storing bread in your refrigerator can cause it to dry out faster and thus become stale faster. And that's because the cold speeds up the recrystallization of the starch in your bread. So then, cold's bad for your bread storage, right? Well, not necessarily. Very cold temperatures are fine. So you can cut up your bread in slices, wrap it in aluminum foil, and stick it into your freezer. And then just take out a slice when you want it and pop it in your toaster. And it will taste just fine, or you can put the whole loaf in your oven to heat up. But best not to put your bread in the refrigerator. Storing avocados is all about managing the ripening process. I don't know about you, but when I bring one home from the store, it's rock hard. So I have to find a way to ripen it. And it definitely isn't sticking it in the refrigerator, because that cold environment halts the production of the ethylene gas, which is what causes this avocado to ripen. So it's best, leave it right on your kitchen counter. Now, if you want a nifty trick to more quickly ripen this avocado, watch this. I bought an avocado, but it's not ripe yet. Well, here's a trick to ripen it really fast. Just put it in a brown paper sack and put in a banana, a very ripe banana. Then just close it up. Yep, after only 24 hours, I don't know if you can see, but I'm able to push in the end. So it has definitely ripened, maybe just a little while longer, and this avocado is ready to eat. Again, if you've had to cut up your avocado, place it in plastic wrap, slice side down in the refrigerator. But do use it up in a couple days. And if you find yourself, you've left them on the counter too long and now they're overly ripe, well, don't throw them out. Slice it up, mush it, put a little lemon juice in, and then it's perfect to make some guacamole or a sandwich spread. And yes, once you do that, keep it in an airtight container in your refrigerator. Now, what about those spuds? Let's dig up the dirt on potatoes. Did you know that potatoes stored in the refrigerator actually go through a chemical change? Because cold converts the starch in your potato to sugar more quickly. And this means when you're frying it up, it can have a darker color and a slightly sweet taste. Not good in a savory dish. And if potatoes aren't stored correctly, you end up with this, they're sprouting, or look at this sweet potato. Yep, so what's the best way to store them? They're best stored in a paper bag, a mesh bag, a burlap bag, something with ventilation, and storing them in a dark place. I picked up something neat on Amazon. It's a potato storage bag. And inside, it's dark, right? It's good, no light. So it can hold up to 8 pounds of potatoes. You put them in, go like this, and then let's say you want to take a potato out. Well, instead of opening the bag and allowing light again, you just unzip here, reach in, take out a potato or potatoes, zip it back up, and put it back in your cool, dark place. Nifty, huh? I got a link down below if you're interested. And again, keep them away from light because that's one of the things that cause them to sprout. And a lot of times you get your potato and they come in a plastic bag. Might have some little holes in it, but it's still plastic. That is not the best way to keep your potatoes because plastic can encourage condensation and keeping moisture in, which isn't good for the health of your potatoes. Oh, I forgot to mention, these bags are washable too, which is great. If you're interested in more ways to keep potatoes long-term, check out a video I have. I have a link down below and I'll feature it at the end of this video. Before we get to the next item, let me just introduce myself. I am Prepper Potpourri and I have been making videos on YouTube for over a decade on how to keep your family safe, how to properly store items, and how to preserve items through canning, dehydrating, freezing, and growing a garden. So if you're interested in that type of content, I hope you click the subscribe button and the notification button. I much appreciate it. Thank you. Onions also should not be kept in your refrigerator. Just like potatoes, it can convert the onion starch to sugar. And like potatoes, the best storage is in a cool, dark place in a mesh bag or burlap bag, something with ventilation, or I got matching one for the other one. This is my onion bag. And yep, dark inside. Again, just put your 5 pounds of onions in or more, and then you can just unzip it and take an onion out when you need it. And this is supposed to keep your onions a lot longer, so they don't end up looking like this. Can you see that? Yeah, pretty grody, huh? And you really don't want to put your onions and potatoes near each other because they emit gases that will hasten spoilage. So keep them separated. Now, what if you cut up your onion? If you did end up slicing your onion or chopping your onion and not using all of it, you can put that in the refrigerator. Just put it in an airtight container or a Ziploc bag because you don't want other things in your refrigerator also smelling and tasting like onions. And what about green onions? You can keep that in the refrigerator, right? Well, you can, but should you? I before have wrapped it in a moist paper towel and placed it in a bag and put it in the refrigerator, but that's not the best way to do it. Let me show you. Just place your green onions in a glass with water. Have enough water to cover up the roots, and then place it on your kitchen counter. And be sure to replace the water every 2 to 3 days and you will keep your green onions fresh for a long, long time. What about garlic? You can keep that in the refrigerator, right? Well, if it's chopped up in oil in a jar that you bought at the store, sure. But if it's like this, no, you shouldn't. It can cause your garlic to sprout sooner and become rubbery. Best again to keep it in a cool, dark place in a mesh bag. You want to have air circulation so you don't get mold on your garlic. And don't break those cloves off until you're going to use them. Again, that will hasten spoilage. And if you do have a broken bulb, try to use those cloves within 1 week. Next up, olive oil. I mean, it's a staple in kitchens. It's praised for its versatility and its health benefits. However, how you store it can significantly affect its shelf life and quality. Cold temperatures can lead to condensation inside the bottle, which will dilute your olive oil. And it'll give it that slightly off taste. And of course, if it's kept in the refrigerator long term, it can start to solidify and turn cloudy. What's the best way to store olive oil? Well, ideally you want to keep it in a dark space, away from the heat of your oven. And it's great if you can keep it between 57 and 70 degrees. I like to pour my olive oil into a container like this because I can take off top, I can easily pour it out when I need it. And it's a nice dark container, and I can keep this on my pantry shelves in my dark pantry, and it will keep just fine, but it's right ready to use. Again, I got this link if you're interested. This one is neat because, well, let me show you. So what I like about this is it comes with a little funnel there, so it's easy to pour your olive oil in, so you can keep it nice in this jar. And it really looks nice on your pantry shelf. Put in your top. It has this pour spout, but it also has this one, which actually has a little cap on it. I really like this for storing my olive oil. One more thing, make sure your cap is on tight to prevent oxidation, which again can spoil the olive oil flavor. And speaking of flavors, how about a nice hot cup of coffee? Smell that aroma. So good. But did you know if you keep your coffee beans or your ground coffee in the refrigerator, it can spoil its taste and aroma. Coffee is incredibly absorbent and sensitive to temperature changes. And if you store it in the refrigerator, it can absorb other smells. You know, like last night's leftovers. And who wants your morning coffee to smell like that? The fridge environment typically contains some moisture. And it's that moisture that can degrade your coffee beans or your ground coffee. And if you degrade that oils, you won't have that rich aroma and taste. So what's the best storage? Well, you want to keep it in an airtight container, again, in a cool, dark place. Now, if you do purchase coffee in bulk, while the refrigerator isn't your best option, you can use your freezer. But remember, it's essential if you're going to use your freezer to store your coffee in airtight containers, so no smells or moisture will seep in and spoil that coffee. And by doing it correctly, your coffee can keep for several months in your freezer. Just when you're going to use it, take out the amount of beans you need and let them come to room temperature before you make your cup of joe. Because what can happen is that cold air in the refrigerator can cause something called sugar bloom. And I think you've seen that before when your chocolate turns a little white or gray on top. Sure, it's still edible, but it doesn't look pretty. So what's the best storage? I think you got it. Keep it away from the light, put it in that dark place, in a cool place. And this chocolate will last quite a long time. I have also vacuum sealed my chocolate for even a longer shelf life. Now, the one exception I make to putting a bar like this in the refrigerator is if I want to have chocolate curls, use my vegetable peeler for some kind of dessert. So I put it in the refrigerator first, and then it's easier to peel off the shreds. But that's the only time you really should refrigerate your chocolate. This smells so good. Fresh basil. Well, you should keep this in your refrigerator, right? Well, I know you've already guessed it. No, you shouldn't. Now, the best way to keep this is what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to plant this and keep it out on my deck so I can have fresh basil all summer long. But in the winter, I can't. So let me show you the best way to keep basil. You're going to store it in water and make sure that no leaves are in the water, because then they can turn dark and slimy. And you may want to cover the top loosely with a plastic bag and just keep it on your kitchen counter, and then every 2 days or so change the water. And it will keep a long, long time without refrigeration. Okay, did you guess the number one item that I believe people mistakenly store in the refrigerator? Is it tomatoes? Avocados? Nope. It is fresh herbs. Many people just instinctively put their fresh herbs in the refrigerator because they want to keep them fresh, not realizing that cold and moisture can do more harm than good. And this can lead to wilting, discoloration, and loss of flavor. But now you know better. The best way to store your fresh herbs is like you would a kitchen bouquet. So by understanding the best ways to store these 10 items, you can make sure that they last longer and it preserves their flavor. Were any of these top 10 storage mistakes a surprise to you? Do you make any of them? Comment below. And if you're curious about some more storage tips, especially how to keep potatoes longer term, watch this video.